These days, current events unfold on a dozen channels. Headlines all seem to be shouting, and good news can be as scarce as a moment to relax. So let's turn down the noise this summer, unplug just a little bit, and head to a shelter from the storms of life. The historic port city of Alpena, located on the Sunrise Shore of Michigan. Only a few hours' drive, but miles away from the weight of the world. Nestled between a vast forest and an endless clear blue bay, where the wonders of nature are as welcoming as the local hospitality. We can explore more than 200 shipwrecks in the largest freshwater sanctuary anywhere. Count the stairs to the top of a lighthouse, or the masts that jet into the harbor sky at moonrise. Let's take a trip to the friendly, picturesque city of Alpena, a haven from the world that's pure Michigan. Your trip begins at michigan.org.
For your viewing pleasure, this broadcast of the Municipal Council meeting of Alpena is made possible by the funding provided by the City of Alpena. Thank you for your generosity.
Good evening and welcome to Alpena City Council meeting of April 21st, 2014. Call the order, please.
Johnson?
Here.
Nielsen?
Here.
Noah?
Here.
Sexton?
Here.
Walagora?
Here. And we're ready for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone had the opportunity to read the regular session, the minutes from regular session April 7th, 2014 and closed session April 7th, 2014. Issues? Any modifications to the agenda this evening? Okay, citizens appearing before council on agenda and non-agenda items are allowed 5 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during a council meeting that citizens are allowed to address council. If you do so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for our records. The consent agenda this evening is bills to be allowed in the amount of $237,554.72. B is one mayoral appointment to the Downtown Development Authority for a 4-year unexpired term expiring June 30th, 2015, and that is Jim Gulish.
Move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Ready?
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
No announcements this evening. I do have a mayoral proclamation. Whereas the family serving as the primary source of love, identity, self-esteem, and support is the very foundation of our communities and our state. And whereas the state of Michigan, there are 14,000 children and youth in foster care being provided with safe, secure, and stable home, along with the compassion and nurture of a foster family. And whereas all young people in foster care need a meaningful connection to a caring adult who becomes a supportive and lasting presence in their life. And whereas foster, kinship, and adoptive families who open their homes and hearts and support children whose families are in a crisis play a vital role in helping children and families heal and reconnect, thereby launching young people into successful adulthood. And whereas dedicated foster families frequently adopt their foster children, resulting in a greater need for more foster families. And where there are numerous individuals, public and private organizations who work in work to increase public awareness of the needs of children in and leaving foster care, as well as the enduring and valuable contribution of foster parents and the foster care system is only as good as those who choose to be part of it. Now therefore I, Matthew J. Walagora, by the authority vested in me as Mayor of the City of Alpena, do hereby proclaim May 2014 as Foster Care Month in the City of Alpena, and urge all citizens to come forward and do something positive that will help change a lifetime for children and youth in foster care. Signed by myself on today. And this evening we have Meg Nisbet and Madeline McConnell to accept the proclamation. Come up.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have a public hearing this evening. This is for the application of a CDBG Downtown Residential Rental Development Grant and a Home Rental Rehab Grant. I'll open the public hearing and we'll hear a report from the Planning and Building, our Development Director. Adam?
Absolutely. I'm Paul, Planning and Development Director. Just want to kind of go over the history of what we've done here and then kind of get into what we are requesting. In October of 2009, the City of Alpena was awarded a 6th rental development grant from MSHDA in the amount of $280,000, to which an additional $140,000 was later added. The grant funded the development of 12 new residential units within the downtown. In September 2011, the city received its 5th MSHDA home grant in the amount of $122,440. And this grant assisted in the rehabilitation of 10 existing rental units in the North Side Vision 2020 target area. To maintain the momentum developed through these successful programs and meet the continuing demand to develop additional downtown and residential rental units, city staff would like to submit a new CDBG downtown residential rental development grant application to MSHDA for $400,000 plus admin fees to develop 10 additional residential units in the downtown area in the commercial corridor extending down Chisholm to 11th Avenue, as well as a home residential rehab grant application for $149,990 plus admin fees to rehabilitate 10 existing residential units in the Chisholm Street Vision 2020 area, as well as the North Side Vision 2020 area. As part of the funding application, the city must conduct a public hearing to receive a report on both activities proposed in the grant application and the status of existing funding activities, and to permit public comment for these activities as well. In accord with these requirements, the following status report is provided on the city's 2 ongoing grant programs. As far as the 2011 Home Northside Rental Rehab Grant Program, there is a list of project addresses, and as you can see, 10 units were Rehab, 130 Oldfield, 402 and 403 West Washington, and then 612 Beebe. If you take a look, and the asterisk doesn't match up, but the asterisk indicates the percentage of local match, which was $75,476. So that was a 38% match. A 25% match is required, so they would the homeowners went above and beyond as far as their local matches, and all of these units are completed and leased. As far as the 2009 MSHDA Downtown Rental Development Program, this program commenced the summer of 2009 with 8 units planned for construction, and 4 more units were added to the grant in 2011, with all being completed by March 2014. Individual projects were downtown. The addresses include 102 North 2nd, 105 and 107 River, 115 North 1st, 123 North 2nd, 210 North 2nd, and 224 West Washington. For a total of 12 units, with the MSHDA portion being $420,000 and total local match of $251,123 with a 37.4% local match. And again, this is a 25% minimum match, so 37% above and beyond what was required. All these units have been completed and leased as well. So With the completion of this grant, the five MSHDA rental rehabilitation grants administered by the city have resulted in the successful rehabilitation of 81 existing rental units in our residential neighborhoods and the development of 22 new rental units in our downtown. Which brings us to our current request. The 2014 Chisholm Street and Northside Vision 2020 target area request. And basically what we did is we took the target area for our 2 previous grants and combined them. So we're looking at both the Northside and the Chisholm corridor, and these are areas identified by the Vision 2020 group as areas of need. We partnered with a number of different agencies, including the county, NEMSCA, MSHDA, local businesses and concerned residents, and a variety of programs were conducted, including the rental rehab program, the county's home improvement program, home maintenance and budget workshops, neighborhood cleanups, etc. in these targeted areas. In 2005, a major portion were targeted to the north side, and in 2008, that was targeted for the Chisholm Street area. Approximately 617 rental units are located within the target area. The city is applying for $149,990 to rehabilitate 10 residential units. These units will be rented to low-income individuals at or below 60% of the area median household income, with controlled rents for a period of 5 years. An information meeting for landlords with registered rental units will be held once the grant application is approved, and after pre-applications are submitted and reviewed by staff. It's anticipated that construction of these projects will begin late this year, with a bulk commencing during the first and second quarters of next year, and all projects are to be completed by June 2016. As far as the other application, the 2014 MSHDA CDBG Downtown Rental Development Program. Interest in this has already been expressed by several parties to develop new downtown and within the Chisholm Street corridor. Units in the DDA will once again be eligible for property tax abatements under the Neighborhood Enterprise Zone program, while units outside the DDA along the Chisholm Street would not be eligible for the NEZ. If the grant application is approved, it's anticipated that the initial information meeting with interested property owners will be held in summer of 2014. As with the previous downtown program, the units developed will be a mix of affordable and market rate units. Affordable units must initially be rented to households whose aggregate income is 80% of the average median income for Alpena County. And if one unit is developed, it must be affordable. If 2 units are developed, one has to be affordable, one could be market rate. And if more than 2 units are developed, 51% must be affordable. Following the completion of the public hearing, it is my recommendation that the council adopt the attached resolution supporting the grant applications and authorizing the mayor to sign all the required documents in the city's behalf. It's a mouthful.
One thing just to add, actually the applications have been already submitted because of the deadline. We couldn't wait until this meeting. They gave us a very short timeline because of pressure by HUD for them to disperse their money.
The good news is because of that short timeline, they allowed us to expand our area down the Chisholm corridor, which is something. I'd also add that the neighborhood enterprise zone, Greg and I will need to meet and discuss the terms for what they would be eligible for. I know that's something the council has indicated they would like to see in the future, and we will be sitting down before any of these grants are officially awarded and to go over any changes that need to take place.
And then those will be presented to council as far as those criteria for the NEZ.
Okay.
Like we have for others, and you'll have to approve those.
Just a quick question, clarification. Am I right that after 5 years, the affordable units can convert to market rate if the landlord chooses to?
Certainly, and then actually, I mean, after 5 years, we just wouldn't do any income verification, and I would imagine they would all be converted to market rate, whatever that would be, is whatever they can get.
So from the 2009 grant, do we know if that happened or not, or?
2009 grant, we haven't hit that window with those properties yet because the grant was approved, started in 2009, but the actual properties were not completed until later, either a year or 2 later. And that one was expanded so that, some of those were just completed in March of 2014. So there are other grants. We've done this previously a number of times, and they are coming off the books. I think we've got a couple more coming off in mid-May as far as becoming market rate and no longer being income limit or income certified.
And just to clarify for the public, when you talk about local match, that's the landlord, not the city, correct?
Certainly, absolutely. The city does not have any match within the, or have any required match. So we give our staff time. And, the other portion is from the landlord or MSHDA.
We are one of the few, it may be the only one in the state, because it is us, the city, running it. We don't have a third-party operator, which we tried one year and it was a very large disaster. But we're able to use our admin fees, rather than if it's a third-party operator, they gotta keep those fees, plus they add in soft costs, which are allowed, because they have to operate, and that's the money they use to sustain themselves. We don't have to do that, you know, basically Adam, or when I ran it, you do the, you know, if we're not doing that, we're doing something else. And some of that money does stay in the general fund, but we use most of it to pay for the lead assessments, the lead clearances, and now in the downtown for phase 1 environmental assessments, asbestos surveys, and we do that so that we can put every rehab or development dollar into the unit, whereas for many of them, all those costs come out of that. And so it just means that you have less grant money going in to the project. And we're trying to maximize it, so we always put 100% of what we can use of a grant into that unit. And that's very different from most, and we think it results in a lot better project. We still get, like Adam said, very high percentage of investment still by the property owner.
And I don't know if you've seen any of the downtown units especially. They're very nice.
Yeah.
Working very well.
Excellent. Anything else for Adam? Thank you, Adam. Now we'll open for public comment on the grant application. No one? Any written comments received in fact? No? Close the public comment. Open for council discussion. Or action? If no discussion.
I think it's been pretty successful, and it's got
Yeah.
people downtown, and it's just a win for everybody. So.
Yeah. It's one of those things that are actually longer on the agenda than they are. What we need to.
Is there a waiting list for these that we know of?
Units?
We know?
You mean for tenants? Sometimes for some of the, especially downtown, there will be people already in line who have contacted the property owner. Sometimes it may take a few weeks to rent, but like Adam said, all of them are rented out, or at least at this point. And in the neighborhood, you know, we get a number of the units are already occupied that we're rehabbing, but the vacant ones usually do not take very long to get rented.
I saw pictures of a couple of them, the owners were showing me. They're very nice, very
Yeah,
nice.
they come out very
The
well.
downtown is,
Yeah, well, and also the ones in the neighborhood, we've had some excellent results with those.
excuse me.
There's 2 resolutions here?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, I move we approve resolution 2014-4.
Second.
Nowak,
Yes.
Sexton,
Yes.
Walagora,
Aye.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen,
Yes,
I move we approve resolution 2014-5.
Second.
Sexton,
Yes.
Walagora, Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen,
yes.
Nowak.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Adam, again. Report of officers. And we have the first reading of ordinance 14-426, an ordinance amending and revising chapter 10, waterways, article 2, marina regulations, section 110-3, management.
Are you gonna do that?
I thought Don would
Okay.
make a comment, and then I would read.
All right.
All this was an exercise to clean up the ordinance, because originally, from whenever it said that the public safety director shall be the harbor master. And so I've been the harbor master for a while, and we don't have a public safety director anymore, so we just changed it to, you know, and I talked with the city manager about it. To the city manager will appoint a department head to be the harbor master, and he can appoint another city employee, staff person to help with that. And that's all it is just cleaning up that, getting the public safety director out of it.
Very good.
Anybody have any questions about it at all?
Pretty simple.
Do you have to read the whole thing, or are you just gonna read that article 110,
There's only,
1.3?
it's one page.
Oh, it's just the one
This is
page
the
on
old
it?
ordinance.
Oh, you just put that in there?
Yes.
Okay.
That was just to show the difference between the old and the new.
Okay.
I'll read the whole
You can read the
thing.
whole thing.
This is ordinance number 14-426. It's an ordinance of the City of Alpena, Michigan, amending and revising Chapter 10, Waterways, Article 2, Marina Regulations, Section 110.3, Management as follows. 3, Section 110.3, Management. A, the marina will be operated under the jurisdiction of the city manager. B, the city manager shall appoint a department head to be the harbor master. It shall be the duty of the harbor master to enforce the provisions of this ordinance. C, the city manager may appoint another city staff to assist the harbor master with the operation of the marina and harbor as may be necessary. And D, the assignment of seasonal and transient vessel slip docks and mooring buoys and anchorage space will be made by the harbor master or his designee, subject to the provisions of this ordinance. And the provisions of this ordinance shall take effect 10 days after being adopted by the municipal council and duly published.
Okay. The only thing that I talked to Greg about a little bit this afternoon after I read this was that if we were gonna, we made the change from it being the harbor master was public safety director to what this is, which is what we have been, but I didn't want us as a council to make a revision to an ordinance that still kind of bound the city manager to select a department head to be harbor master. And I talked to Greg, and he said that ordinarily it would be a department head anyhow that did that, whether it be building department head or DPW department head, that it would be a department head. So that was only my only question to Greg, and I don't, you probably feel the same way as you did when we discussed it today, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there, that if, you know, if we wanted to make it where it said the city manager shall appoint the harbor master, rather than saying where and when he had to be appointed from as far as a department head, but he had a good explanation for me.
I mean, it can be either way. Only thing I said is, one, we want somebody from the city so that we have, as long as we have a contractor, a third-party contractor running it, that we have a liaison and a direct person who will be there to oversee what they're doing and make sure the ordinance is followed and the contract. If, for any reason, we didn't have a third-party contractor and operated it itself, then it would be a city employee of some, and likely a department head. Now, whether it is an existing department head, the other would be, you could conceivably make the harbor master its own department and the running, in which case it will be a department head anyways. And if it was still felt that that language wasn't quite right, if we ever got to that point, then we could just make that small modification. But in the meantime, I don't see us we need that person from the city. We need that direct liaison and contact, and Don has done a good job with that for, what'd you say, 5 years now?
Yeah.
Roughly, so, you know, whether it is him or somebody else, we need that.
Otherwise, I didn't have any issues with it at all.
Move we approve ordinance
We don't
number.
have to
No,
approve
it's just
that.
first reading.
Or
is
not.
all today.
So we
That'll be
Next time.
next time.
come back next time on that. Excellent. So we move on with no further discussion on that one. Treasurer's financial report, July 1st, 2013 through March 31st, 2014.
I don't have too much to report. We're 3/4 of the way through our budget. Our revenue and our expenses should be at about 75%. Our revenues are at 92% because most of our tax money has come in, and the expenses are at about 77%. A little bit on the high side, but again, that's because of those large one-time expenses that have already hit. I think our retirement payment was $670,000. So once that hit, it drove it up a little bit. Yeah, so, Did have some good news. The state sent us $50,000 extra in revenue because of the hard winter to help us with our street maintenance. So that was good news, and we got it already. Before Rich barely told us, we had a check in the mail, so. And then we will be getting you our amended budget for this year and next fiscal year's projected budget. We'll try to get that to you next week. Both of them look as though we will have to use fund balance again, like we continue to project. Property tax estimates are gonna be a little bit on the low side. But we stayed much steadier than last year when we had lost, I don't know, it was almost $200,000, so. But we're still struggling with that revenue, and yet expenses continue to go up. So we're gonna continue to work on that, and we'll get that to you next week.
Karen, is it a little early to project any kind of fund balance?
I think at the end of this year, it'll be over 20% still. And then next year, it'll probably be under 20%. So we will still have a decent fund balance. We tend to project that we're gonna use the fund balance, but we try really hard, and we are successful at coming in where we haven't had to dip into it very much.
Will you be able to, and maybe not tonight, but I was gonna just ask Rich if
Make 'em.
and maybe you can come back if you can get a number from DPW. We talked a lot about, and Karen told us several times over the winter that we spent considerably extra amount on salt and plowing, and the state so graciously gave us $50,000. Can you give us an idea of whether that, should we really feel that great about it, or are we talking about?
Well, it's always good.
It's always good. I mean, it could have been nothing, but
That was part of the $100 million that the state set aside to assist local governments, and then they used the Act 51 formula to distribute that. And it was just over $50,000. You know, we can certainly come up with a number of what we spent on winter maintenance this year. I know that right now, we have more than exceeded we have a contract with MDOT to reimburse us for the expenditures that we do maintaining the state trunk lines. We've exceeded that by $8,000 to $9,000, and we're still 2 months or 2 quarters left to go in the year. But in that case, Michigan Department of Transportation has contingency funds, and they will make us whole for our expenditures on the state trunk lines.
On the state trunk line.
Yeah.
So that 50 is just for our, doesn't have to be.
Just to assist the city in overcoming our excess costs and maintaining the streets this winter.
Okay. And that's a pretty good figure. I mean, as far as what we did have to overexpend, that's what I'm kind of getting at.
We're beyond that.
I'm sure yeah, okay, figured so.
But I can bring a report back next week.
Maybe just something to give us an idea.
Sure.
Because occasionally we'll end up meeting with someone from the state and, you know, give them a perspective, I guess, on how good they really were to us.
Sure if you should be thanking them or not.
And also in your financial report, if you look under Fund 202 Major Street Fund, there is Department 453 trunk line, and then that does show, you know, what we spent. We're at 103%. We should be at about 75, so we are, yeah. So that type of thing does stand out.
You need a receipt file?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Walagora?
Aye. Sorry.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Nowak?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
All right, communications and petitions. This evening we have Larry Clerk from the US 23 Corridor Cleanup. We're taking pride in Alpena. I'm not sure if you've changed your...
No, we're still calling ourselves that, I think, Taking Pride in Alpena. It's good to be back. Thanks, Greg, for getting me on the agenda once again. I can give you an update what we've been up to over the past 20 months, but also 3 exciting things we have planned for this year as well. Never at a loss for words. I've got a presentation here. I'll try to keep brief. You know, what you're seeing here on the 2 televisions is kind of a part of my scrapbook, if you will, on the condition of the corridor. Really, most of it from where we began. Some of the accomplishments we've actually had over the summer and fall last year. Obviously, some of the things we're still working on as well. But to start off with, in the past 20 months, I'm just so blessed to see all the volunteers we've been able to have come out and help us with this project, and the outpouring of support from so many different people, including our major volunteer organizations in town, the businesses, and a lot of the citizens from Bear Point and so forth. On May 16th of last year, 40 of us met at Kmart to clean up the east side of 23, from Thunder Bay County to Farrell Gas, and Eric Precourt at MDOT was just a huge help, providing signs, as you can see, that slowed down traffic, and also equipment. A number of the businessmen also supplied heavy equipment and trucks, and we literally swept and hauled away tons of dirt and gravel and dozens of trash bags from the east side of the highway. The east side of the highway is actually worse, from stuff blowing over, I guess, from the other side. And then, so we didn't finish it up. On June 8th, 20 volunteers met at the Alpena Mall and finished the project. And once again, it was just a lot of yellow shirts out there and just getting the job done. A lot of people stopping and honking and thanking us for doing it too. On August 1st last year, 70 members of the Air Force Reserve from Ohio through Habitat for Humanity stopped by and painted 2 of the houses and one of the garage and some trim and as well, and did just a wonderful job. Just friendly people, and once again people stopping to chat with them and everything, and really made an event out of it that day. Unfortunately, rain intervened during the afternoon and actually washed some paint off at one of the houses. But Chemical Bank had a volunteer day, and they worked with Habitat for Humanity and were able to finish that up in October. Stacy Todd has just been wonderful in working with the group. And the Plowmans, John and Steve, also have done a lot of work in connection with this effort. ABC Hardware just donated hundreds of dollars worth of supplies, and a number of businesses actually put money into an account there as to pay for supplies and so forth as well. The new director of the Boys and Girls Club, Carissa Kern, it's just neat to see her out there with these kids, age old from 8 to 12. You should have seen them. They painted 36 fire hydrants over the course of 3 days, and covered with red paint. They have red paint on them and the band and everything else, but was kind of cute to watch them. And the amazing thing is also that the businesses have really stepped up to the plate and helped keep the corridor clean. And motorists have actually stopped, not as much trash to clean up periodically too. So a number of our guys walk from Bear Point down to McDonald's or Neiman's and carry trash bags with them. There's been far less they've had to pick up on the way. You've probably seen the flower pots out there as well, and courtesy of the Plowmans, and also a couple of guys from our subdivision have been watering those. We're still working with the township, the supervisor, and the board of trustees to enforce the dangerous building ordinance and the blight ordinance. Actually, last fall, we were able to go from being just a cleanup organization to more of an economic development effort as well. We had a couple of meetings at the Alpena Mall, invited the businesses. And out of those surveys came the vote that reduction of blight and improving economic vitality on 23 South is our primary concern. So in connection with that, we formed a steering committee now of some key businesses. And we're working with MEDC and NIMCOG, Target Alpena, as well on 2 major projects. One of them is a Corridor Improvement Authority, and on your last page of this presentation, you'll see some details on that. Basically, it's a TIF that's been established by the state for major highway interests into communities. And also the 23 Heritage Route Project. We've been fortunate that we were selected as a pilot project for this effort. The state did acquire a planning grant for that, and because of our strong volunteer effort, we're a big part of that project. So I'll tell you more about that in a minute here. 3 of our townships also in the county, Sanborn, Wilson, and Greene, have been, we've been in contact with them, and they've been embarking on some cleanup efforts as well. Looking ahead, this year, probably heard me say many times in other meetings that we're trying to really take the project Eliminate Blight step through. Not only just taking care of blight, but really making that corridor aesthetically pleasing. for shoppers and attract our local shoppers as well as out-of-town shoppers. No doubt seen what's going on with Dunham's down there at the mall. And some other big projects are on the books coming up here this year and next year. On May 17th, we're going to be having another cleanup effort on 23 that we're meeting this week. Everybody concerned to plan that event. I just finished working with NIMCOG as well on an access management study, so we can take a look at all the driveways there. There's a hodgepodge of driveways in the businesses on 23 South. Looking at ways we can consolidate those, and also looking at potential service roads, perhaps in back of some of this business, maybe a Pearl Road extension and so forth that would come out at Neiman's. And we're looking at that as well to improve traffic flow on 23. Been in contact also again with our volunteer groups to look at painting. I know that Chemical Bank signed on again a project this fall to work on some more houses and so forth. And we're working with of course we're continuing to work with the township on a couple of things, including grass and so forth, and cleaning up the bike path and so forth. I've been to a number of meetings, and I'd really like to encourage the city as well as the county and township really to work together on this, in the whole blight effort. I think blight goes hand in hand with our ability and our efforts to try to attract more business to our community. And the reduction of blight obviously makes our community more appealing. It's going to attract more jobs, more businesses, and so forth. So hope to work with you again on that in the future. And we're part of the branding effort as well, Alpena Sanctuary of the Great Lakes. And ultimately, in closing, long-term we'll be looking at kind of the neighborhood, establishing the south quarter as more of the neighborhood. We haven't gelled on a name yet, but we really want to bring focus to the uniqueness we have on 23 South. And having some events coming up this year in the mall parking lot, and things like that. Any questions?
None specifically there. I appreciate you coming in. It's always good to hear what you've been able to accomplish. I, for one, think it's pretty amazing what you've done from a simple walk and picking up trash to what you've accomplished on the whole corridor there. So,
Well, thanks for all of your support.
Keep in touch for sure.
Kind words on it.
All right, thanks, sir. Okay, no unfinished business. We have some new business this evening. Renewal of the Thunder Bay Marine contract for operation of the city marina.
Greg Sundin and I met with the, the marine operators, Thunder Bay Shores Marine, in January to discuss the possibility of extending their contract. I'd got interest from them back in the fall as they were putting the boats away that they were interested in doing that. The current contract has a 2-year extension built in if it's agreeable to both parties. The contract is attached for you to review, and it outlines services to be performed by the city and what services the operators are going to do down there. The current contract included a $30,000 annual payment to the city for being allowed to operate the marina, and an additional $3,814 is paid for rent of the city-owned boat hoist. That goes into the equipment fund. At the first meeting in January, Thunder Bay Shores Marine expressed interest in operating the marina for an additional 2 years, but not at the current annual payment amount. They proposed 2 scenarios, with one being a percentage of revenues collected at the marina be paid to the city, and another was a $20,000 flat payment. And looking at the revenues that they were projecting to pay us a percentage of from last year, it was a little under 20,000, 19.5 or something like that. So based on those best anticipated revenue projections, that's why I came up with it would be between 19 and 20,000. They cited the reason for reducing the annual payment as declining revenues they collect for seasonal and transient motor traffic. The monthly annual reports they give us also reflect the decline in revenue. Revenues have been falling off 10 to 12% over the last several years. And I know a lot of you are new to the council and probably don't have a good grasp on how that marina actually operates, but the thing to key in on, it operates at a loss. There's no money to be made in marinas in northern Michigan right now, the way things are. Our marina, when I was younger, it was half the size it is now. The part going out towards the rivers, all the new expansion that was done with a lot of millions of dollars of state money. And that was basically due to the fact that everybody had a good job making automobiles, and they got 3 weeks off in the summer. They jumped in their 50-foot yachts with $100 bills, and they spent dozens of them up and down the lake. Life was good. The salmon fishery was fantastic when they were planted in the late 60s. A lot of times, for most of the year, you have to head out 10, 15 miles to get to those fish. So guys got bigger boats. They didn't want to work an 8-hour shift and then go fishing. They wanted their boat at the harbor. So back in those days, there was waiting lists to get a dock at the harbor. I mean, you know, where you had 10, 12, 15 people on a waiting list. Those days are gone. We can't even get that thing halfway full. So all that's the decline of the fishery. You know, we all know what happened to the auto industry. That's one of the big reasons for the decrease in revenue. Also, people don't buy those big 25, 30-foot boats because of the cost of fuel. What more people are doing now are buying the smaller trailerable boats that they might have a cabin in them that they can spend the night on, but they can trailer them to any marina they want to go to. They can go to Long Lake, Grand Lake, and they don't have to pay for that dockage, you know, all throughout the summer. So in an attempt to offset the downward trend, the city had been allowed by the Waterways Commission to offer special rates for 1- and 2-month seasonal docks, as opposed to paying for the 5-month season, and reduced rates for special events like the Michigan Brown Trout Festival for the last few years. While all of these rate adjustments have helped, revenues still continue to decline. Thunder Bay Shores Marine's revenues are directly linked to the amount of seasonal and transient boater use of the marina. Fewer boats, they sell less fuel. People that keep their boats in at the dock at the harbor are going to hire them to come and put the spark plugs in and fix the leak in their fuel tank or whatever it might be. And all those other kind of parts and services that they can sell down there. So through continued negotiations, we've arrived at a 2-year extension of the current contract, a $25,000 annual payment. Everything else in the contract will be the same as the previous 2 years. And Thunder Bay Shores Marine will continue to pay the same rate for the rental of the boat hoist at $38.14 per year. One thing I will say is we're going to ask you to sign the contract tonight, but we're not going to enter into it because they still owe us some money from last year. I was talking with them today, and they're going to get that paid this week. The only good news in them owing us money from last year is we get a couple $100 extra in interest, if you want to call that good news. But other than that. But it would be my recommendation to the City Council to approve the contract with Thunder Bay Shores Marine to operate the city boat harbor is presented for the next 2 years, expiring, and it can either be December 31st of 2015 or January 1st of 2016, because it's both ways in that contract. I think you caught that, Cindy, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Everything that's changed in the contract over the way it's been for the last, since I've been the harbor master and previous before that, is in red in that contract, and basically it's just their rate structure. But do you have any questions about the marine in general, I mean, or anything about the contract?
I got a couple, Donna. How long has Thunder Bay Marine actually run the harbor?
How long have they been doing that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Over 20 years. And the way it came about was the person before them came to council. They had bid out the contract for operating the marina, and back then there actually was interest in it. So they had a few different people bid it, and I'm not going to say, I can't remember the guy's name for sure, but he came here and he said, you know what, I'll give you half all the money I collect. Now this was back when it was good. And Mike and Rich, who had Thunder Bay Shores Marine, they were operating Hammond Bay, the Presqu'île Boat Harbor. They had an inland marina down by Tawas City, so they had a lot of experience in it. They said, you can't do it for that, it's impossible. You won't have enough money to operate. And he did the contract, he collected a bunch of money, and he disappeared. And so Mike and Rich stepped in and took over and basically bailed the city out 20 years ago. And that's how long they've been doing it. So they've been doing it for a long time. You know, they turn in reports, we see the money. I mean, it's not a business I personally would want to get into if that was my only job, because it just doesn't look like a moneymaker, but that's part of what they've done for a lot of their life, has been on the water. You know, Rich does marine surveying, kind of like an appraisal of a house. He does that on yachts. It's what they do.
And did I understand you correctly in saying that this isn't just an Alpena thing, this is a you know, up and down, if we compare this to any of the other harbors in this whole region of northeast Michigan, you're gonna see about a 10%, 12% decrease.
I don't know if I would say all of them, it wouldn't be that way if you went to Mackinac Island.
Mhm.
You know, the state built a new harbor up there. There's certain places that boats go anywhere. Our lament has always been, you know, everybody else says, well, nobody's gonna come to Alpena because we're 10, 11 miles off the lake. I mean, Thunder Bay, that's how far out you go to get where the shipping channels are, where people cruise up and down the lake. So, it's always been the idea that we have to become a destination. And I think if we weren't becoming a destination, that 10 to 12% would be much worse, because if you go to Harrisville or you look up at Rogers City, they're far below where we're at, especially in the transit boater traffic. If you have a reason for somebody to go, they're gonna drive the boat 10 miles. You know, alluding to the salmon fishing before, there's a series of humps dead in the middle of the old bonding range out in the middle of Lake Erie. It's 25 to 35 miles straight out from here. And if you told me it was full of 20-pound salmon, I'm going out there, because that's my destination. So we have to, with the sanctuary and the river and the trails, we've advertised in magazines, as have those guys, you know, telling people, we're right close to downtown, so that's a plus. You can park your boat, you can shop, you can rent a bike, you can go to Noah's. So, you know, we really push those ideas out there.
Excellent.
Do the same people tend to rent the ships the same,
Exactly.
and they're not increasing the same,
No,
they're
well,
not getting new renters?
We get a couple new ones every year to replace the 2 older ones that died. That's because
Right.
the people that keep their boats, it's just a fact, they're older, they pass away.
Well, they're paying attention now.
I talked to a guy this year, and I don't know, he came up here Valentine's Day, him and his wife took a cruise, and they were over on the other side of the state. And he has 2 boats, he's got like a 45-foot power boat, and then he's got a 30-some-foot sailboat. He was coming, and he's gonna rent 2 slips for those boats to keep them here, because one of the things the city did right was bought that open-ended hoist. So we can pull a person's sailboat up out of the water without having to take their mast off. So, McVitie, you know, he likes to race a sailboat. So he'll pay those guys $200 to pull his boat out so he can clean the bottom and wax it or whatever to make it go, you know, half a mile an hour faster so he can win his race. If he had to take his mast off, he's not gonna do that. It assists with, you know, sometimes the sailboats get run aground, they ding their prop up or something, you know, the ones that have them, and they have to be repaired. So it saves a ton of money not having to take that mast off. And because of the cost of those, the next closest one is in Sheboygan. So there isn't, if we didn't have that open-ended hoist, we wouldn't have the Lady Michigan sitting in our parking lot down there. It would be wintering over up in St. Ignace.
Right.
So there, you know, there was a lot of benefits to that. So all those things kind of help make us that destination.
So I'm going to assume we don't raise the rates
On the hoist?
on anything.
No, our dockage rates, well, initially, they're set by the waterways, and it used to be the waterways say, here's how much you charge us.
Oh.
And if you don't like it, you come and argue with it. And I don't want to use the word argue, you go present your facts, and I did that to get some different rates. I've always been very well received, because I laid it out, you know, the decline of the salmon fishing. We built all these harbors all over, now they're all sitting empty because the salmon are gone. I mean, there's a great fishery out there, don't get me wrong, lake trout, walleyes, but there's just people that want to fish for salmon, that's what they want to catch, so they're going to the west side of the state. I gave my kids my boat so they could go to the west side of the state, because there's just not the big interest to catch those type of fish, so. But we do have, we were given a range now, A through E, and we're allowed to pick our rate. So our rate right now is one of the lowest around. When I say the lowest, the next lowest one, if you had a 35-foot boat, you might pay $100 a year less. So we're not on the rock bottom, but we're reasonable. And then you did a change to the fee schedule already for, another thing they did was on transient boaters, it used to be when they came, you paid for your slip based on the length of your boat. And that's changed, and now you pay for your slip based on the length of the slip. And we still have latitude, if you have a 25-foot boat and all we have is a 48-foot slip, you'll only pay the 35-foot rate for the smaller slip that we would have, so. And we hammered out, I mean, Brown Trout Festival, we tell guys, hey, you wanna put your boat in for the festival, $20. You know, we knock off a couple, $4 or $5 a day, hoping they do it. Some do, some don't.
We read Is our growth restricted more with our inability to put a lot of resources in the marina, or is it more factored into some of the things you talked about as far as the salmon and the economics of the state?
I think economic. If you keep your boat in the boat harbor and you go to get a gallon of gas, you know how mad you were last week when it hit 389, you were thinking you should have got it when it was 373, and then the next day you woke up and it was too late. Down there, there's extra taxes besides the kind of taxes we pay on shore. They throw another 30 cents a gallon in to help fix up marinas for the grant and aid harbors like ours. I mean, that's where some of that money came from. Fortunately, we didn't have a match when we were able to get dredged last year. So, my honest gut feeling is it wouldn't make any difference. I mean, you know, we strive to try to make it look better and maintain it better, but I mean, what could we do that would make the boaters want to come? You know, I mean, things like Brown Trout festivals, or fireworks, art on the bay, Noah Center, you know, advertising those types of things are the things to try to get boats in there. The shipwrecks, you know, sometimes the divers will come and they'll bring 2 or 3 boats and stay for a week. The way the money works down there, though, we don't realize any of that money. The city gets nothing. When those guys subcontract to run the marina, they keep all the funds. All we keep is the money that they give us. And then I keep the, I switched it a while back that the launch stickers that we sell here at City Hall before they're open, we keep that money too, and that's generally around $2,000 a year, but that just pays for the price of printing them. So it's kind of a break even. They're really not that interested in hanging around after this 2 years is up, and I don't see anybody stepping up to take their place. When Andrew was here, he was an undergrad that worked all summer with us, did some great things. We put together a heck of a package and went out with an RFP, because I'm sure you remember, Sean. I mean, it was a really nice document. And through my being on the board of directors with the Ports Collaborative and the Great Lakes Small Harbors Coalition, that thing went across the nation. And we had 3 responses. And the first 2 I talked to said, "How much are you going to pay us?" So they're not chomping at the bit to take over marinas around here.
The only question I had was that it's pretty clear what you're doing, and I think that gives them some incentive. I was talking to Greg a little bit about the incentive that they have to do their best to do what they do, and that's the revenue they keep after they've paid us their fee. What we're basically talking about is $5,000 difference between what they paid us last year, what they're going to pay us this year. What does that $5,000 directly affect, if anything? Does it just go in the fund? If it goes in the general fund?
Marina fund.
It goes in the marina fund?
We'll take a $10,000 hit just on not having that $10,000 of revenue in the next 2 years.
It just means less money we can put into the marina.
Into the marina itself, or?
We cut capital projects this year.
Yeah.
And next year.
Yeah, there was, there's some things we're mandated. We're mandated to do on inspections that were performed, you know, put ladders on the ends of certain docks in certain spots so people can crawl out. I just knocked that right out of there because it's $10,000 for 6 of those ladders or so. Well, if we don't have a whole bunch of boats over there, you know, I can have somebody, you're gonna go park over there where that ladder is, as opposed to buy $1,000 ladder to put at the end of their dock. And when things get better, then we'll look at that. But
okay.
Right now, we're just kind of in a, you know, trying to maintain what we have.
That's understandable.
We had a grant several years, 4 or 5 years ago. I think that we finally kicked it back 3 years ago, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get rid of our last fixed dock and put in a new floating dock system. And the council at the time just couldn't see spending our match. I think we got it down to around, what was it, 200,000 or something?
Yeah, it's 210,000 for them.
And we just couldn't do it.
Makes sense. Anyone take action on that?
Sure. I move we approve the contract with Thunder Bay Shores Marine to operate the boat harbor for the next 2 years.
Second.
Johnson?
Yes.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye. Thank you, Don. Next up is mobile food vehicle sales in select city parks. Sorry, yeah, thanks.
No problem. All right, earlier this year, Ben and Michelle Sylvester approached the city council with a plan to operate a food truck within the city of Alpena. As no regulations existed for mobile food vehicles, city council directed staff to draft an appropriate ordinance to allow for it, as well as regulate mobile food vehicles. City staff partnered with the DDA and formed a committee consisting of mobile food vendors, brick and mortar restaurants, and public safety officials. City staff has also sought input from those unable to attend the meetings. While progress has been made and a mobile food vehicle ordinance could be submitted to the city council in the near future, Ben and Michelle have indicated at this point they only want to operate within city parks and within organized events, and have requested that an agreement be drafted to allow them to operate within select city parks. Currently, the city has a similar agreement in place for the rental of canoes and kayaks within Duck Park that has been successful for multiple years. Staff believes that that limited operation of mobile food vehicles would be a benefit to many parks. These vehicles would not only serve people within the parks, but also bring additional people into the park, as well as allow for additional food options where previously were not available. If for some unforeseen conflict does occur, either party can cancel the agreement with 15 days notice, and the agreement will have to be renewed annually. Similar request was made earlier this month to allow a mobile food vehicle on private property located at the Lee's miniature golf site. Staff worked with the applicant, and because the use in question was in a single location on private property, and it appeared to be a logical accessory use to the mini golf use, staff submitted this request to the Planning Commission for site plan review, which was unanimously approved. So, included in your packet should be an agreement between the City of Alpena and Epicure LLC. The applicants are here if there are any specific questions that I can't stress, but open for questions.
I guess right off the bat, for myself, one of the concerns that I've got is when I was looking at the list of the different parks and so on, would be McRae Park. And my concern there would be is that there would be a direct competition with the snack bar, that actually those funds that are raised at the snack bar are used to improve either the baseball league or the facilities themselves. So that part, probably I would have a concern during that season.
Sure.
The other items that I wanted to just discuss a little bit too is that, and I think I understand this, but I wanted to clarify that if there is, for instance, the summer concert series or Church in the Park, there's no operation within that park unless they have permission from the event coordinator. Do I have that correct?
You do have that correct, yes.
Okay. And then on item G, the only concern with that is I think that was a little too vague, because it reads, shall occupy the fewest amount of parking places needed for the operation of the business. I think I'd be more comfortable with that, since I saw the size of the truck tonight, if it had more of a limitation of said not more than 3, etc. Because I've seen in some cities where these guys will just spread out and take, anywhere from 3 to 10 parking spots with tables and such, and just eliminate a lot of parking. So I think that would be something I'd be more comfortable with on that.
Certainly, and that could be added. The reason behind that particular wording, being the fewest instead of a set number, was number one, I didn't exactly know how big their truck was, and number two, the different parking lots are orientated in different ways, whereas they may end up having to park across a couple parking lots, or perhaps as many as 3, and that's why we wanted to address that. I didn't want to necessarily limit them, but I also didn't want them, or for that matter, anybody else, taking up more spaces than needed. So we could certainly put a number on that, but that's why it was written the way it was.
Just before we move beyond G, just so we're not coming back after a
Sure.
long discussion back to G. I saw that too, and I wondered who would be specifying what the operation of the business is, because even though the truck is the size of a truck, it's not huge in any nature but what if the business owner said, well, the needed for the operation of my business is a table with an umbrella, with some chairs, with some, and not, and I'm just looking at this as a business owner, not specifically for the party, so don't get me wrong, but I don't want to get in an issue with, say, our law enforcement or whoever, that it isn't specified what the operation of the business is. So maybe just the size of the truck plus the awning, or the or something that specifies that the business doesn't spread out.
Yeah, certainly, we could, certainly add some wording regarding that. I made a point to leave some of these slightly broad, just on the basis that, hopefully, a conversation with them would be able to rectify any small issues, and if there are any large issues, we could terminate the contract. But we certainly could add additional language if that is concern of council.
Again, just,
How liberal would we be with encroachment on the park itself? For instance, a grassy area just across the lot, the parking lots, or just as a broad example? Are they allowed to do that?
Under item C, it says they shall operate within the existing vehicular use areas of any approved park. So they would be limited to the parking lots.
So you can't encroach on the grassy area of the park?
And the way it's written right now, no.
Okay.
But I didn't mean to interrupt, so if you had more,
I'm
Mike,
all set,
go ahead. Okay. Anyone else?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned that and I'm gonna make a bad joke, okay? That we're putting the food cart before the horse a little bit. I told you.
I don't get the joke.
You know, when this came up before, you know, it was my thinking that we delayed the decision to approve it until we had an ordinance in place. So I guess, you know, entering into the contract without an ordinance to adhere to or to exist within the parameters of, just had a couple of concerns. I guess one, and I'll let you address these, is, I don't know either way, but is it fair to other vendors who might have been interested and are waiting on the ordinance to go ahead and enter into an agreement with one private party? And I guess secondly, how would we handle any conflicts between this contract and what ultimately the ordinance would say?
Ultimately speaking, as far as is it fair, I'm not aware of any other vendors. That doesn't mean they're not out there. They would, if there is no ordinance in place, it would be able to approach the city the same way that Ben and Michelle have. And at that point, we could speculate as to whether any additional language would be needed as far as limiting amounts in any given park, things of that nature. I purposely didn't include any language in that right now because we don't have the interest, to my knowledge. And again, that there may be, but none that I've heard of. Second part was, refresh my memory.
Once the ordinance is created, how would we handle any conflicts between that and this particular contract, if there would be any?
Ultimately speaking, I would imagine once the ordinance is created, the parties would opt out of the contract at that point. And the reason for that being that the ordinance is the way it's currently drafted, and again, it's still a draft and there's still changes being made, is that they would allow food trucks to operate within city parks, certain city parks. And obviously, if there's any specific examples where they wouldn't be able to operate, we'd be able to note that. But long story short, the ordinance would probably supersede this agreement because it'd probably be easier for the applicants. It would also open up a number of additional spaces beyond the parks.
So, and I guess, you know, a follow-up to one of the questions that I raised, and if I read and understood what you said, an event organizer, the Alpena City Little League at McRae Park then would be considered an event within the park. And for the truck to be allowed in that park, they would have to get permission from that league to operate during that event.
Correct. Right now, I mean, obviously, we have to draw a line somewhere between what events are what. Little League's obviously an event that utilizes that park and has an existing interest in their snack program and for fundraising purposes. But we have to draw a line with other events such as someone rents a pavilion for a picnic or something like that. So that's why we use the event terminology versus any kind of rental. Yes.
Okay. Good point.
I've got a couple. Being this we're looking for to allow us to possibly sign into this agreement tonight. I wanted to just like on the very beginning where it says Epicure LLC through the life of this agreement or as amended shall, and then at the beginning of each one of your notes you put shall, and so I don't know if that's appropriate to be. It should either be at the end of the sentence or at the beginning of each one of your items. So you're not,
That makes sense. I can just get rid of
First.
the shells at the first beginning of the sentences, and I really just stole this format from an existing contract.
Okay.
So I
I just got that.
Must have been the old planner that had that set up.
No, I didn't do any of
We
it.
won't speculate who it was. Couldn't be right, though.
Another just a typographical thing on F, it says shall not impede the flow of traffic with the vehicular use area, and I think you're looking for within.
Correct. I did make that change.
Is that on yours?
The one I'm looking at, I thought I had made that, the one that got packet, but apparently I made it too late, so that was my fault.
Okay, no problem. And I've got a lot of other maybe issues that I foresee coming. But I understand that this is a first step, and it's a good test platform, if you will, because if there are other vendors, now you're looking at, okay, let's say, I mentioned it to Greg earlier, where let's say there's, all of a sudden there's 5, within a few months there's 5, and now we've got 5 that are entering into the same type of contract, and you may have 5 at a place as small as Blair Park, and so now all of your parking places at Blair are taken up. So, but I am to understand that in the event we have the 15 days where we can, if we don't see anybody else and they're the only ones that do it all summer, well, that would be fantastic for them, and it would be easy for us because we probably wouldn't have to make too many adjustments. But there is the 15-day notice, and that, as long as that's understood by both parties, that might be something that we might have to pull the plug on it and
Correct. And
reevaluate.
If we did exceed or get a lot of interest and for some reason the ordinance wasn't ready, or we chose not to go that route for whatever reason, if that was the case, we could ultimately just say, hey, we're gonna cancel the current agreement, we will offer you a new contract with wording saying only 1 vehicle per park at one time, or something along those lines. So
Right.
certainly something we could change very quickly.
So you've got a bit of a plan in that. Now, in O, where it says this agreement may be terminated by either party within 15 days written notice, and that's for any reason.
Correct.
So you don't have to specify in here what those, what that might, it could be just for anything, and
No.
obviously fair and unfair. The other question I had was, under L, it says, shall make payment to the city of a fee of $100 per month. How is that established, and what is that for?
Long story short, it was established, I took the rates that we have used in previous agreements, we set a precedent for that, I thought it seemed fair. The reasoning behind why it's not significantly less, or for that matter, significantly more, is ultimately I didn't want to be inundated with requests, which is why it's not $5 per month. The fund does go into, I believe it goes to the general fund, there's no specific location where it goes.
Probably parks.
Okay, yeah, I'm not sure where that went in the past, and it's certainly somewhere we could designate that for a certain location. And I didn't really want to go over $100 per month. I haven't really established fees for the proposed ordinance, but I would imagine, looking at other places, it's somewhere around $500 per year. So if we look at the usable months, this would seem to be in line.
Okay.
I think a lot of that too is, again, each time we've done anything in the parks, whether it was with the kayak rentals, then the rental of the warming shelter that we approved last meeting or the meeting before, and then they've been basically new and in essence uncharted as far as for us doing this. So we tried to come up with a number that, because we certainly want the business to succeed. It's not the intent to make it so high that they can't operate, and as we said, so low that it's rather meaningless at the same time. And then we can look at it as they can, and if we need to make adjustments, if we find that a higher fee makes sense, we can do that later, or even adjust it the other way if we feel that it would be in the best interest, and then of course council would have to approve that either way. But we came up with the numbers, Adam said that seemed kind of middle ground that would be workable. And the same with a lot of this language. Trying to get too detailed, we felt, especially at the beginning, when we don't really know how it's all going to work out, would make it very difficult. Because as Adam said, the hope is, if there are some issues that come up, he goes and talks with them, we come up with a resolution and we resolve it. rather than trying to end up with an agreement that instead of a couple pages long is now 47 pages, and no matter what you put in, you're gonna miss something. And that type of thing. And then, yes, if we see that there's something that we really do need to put in language-wise, we can add that as the circumstances warrant and as we see it developing. And with that 15-day, that gives us a very quick out. If we can't resolve something, okay, you're done in 15 days. And if you wish to continue, we're gonna restructure the agreement.
Adam, this is probably a moot point, but is there I'm going to make an assumption that state liquor laws would prohibit anyone from selling any alcoholic beverage without a specific license for that? And would they also have to come before the city and ask for a license?
I'm 99% certain that food trucks are not able to sell any kind of liquor or alcohol.
Okay.
And if they wanted to, that would be something we would be able to address, I would imagine. No, and every other community I've talked to, the main draw they've noted with the food trucks is the fact that how they explained that they don't hurt the brick and mortar restaurants. The fact that a lot of people will come for food trucks to get a sandwich, but if they want to get a drink afterwards, they have to go into the brick and mortar restaurants.
And that makes a lot of sense. But there'll be one person that will try, you know,
Yeah.
it has to be somebody. And I don't think it'll be Michelle.
Yeah, and even if they
then-
did, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm 99%
Okay.
certain that would be the case.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't have an issue leaving McCray Park on the list of parks because they would have to get permission from clubs to sell there anyway, so. I don't have an issue with G. I think that most people will be responsible with the amount of space that they take up. And I don't have an issue with limiting, because I'm hoping that we get more of these food trucks. I'm hoping that we have an issue with food trucks. That's my hope, anyway. But with this particular agreement, I'm wondering if we can, this agreement, just put in there when the ordinance is done, that the ordinance supersedes this. Can we just add that, so then this just rolls over to the ordinance?
We can, but I think what I'd like to do is, before we would do that, is to have a discussion amongst myself, Rich, and Adam, is that the way it has been set up in the past with the parks, and was approved by council, is that any use of the parks by for-profit, in which case we've now done two, has to go through basically Rich as overseeing the parks, and often, well, at least I've been involved with those too, in terms of putting together an agreement and then presenting that to council. So whether the ordinance will totally supersede that, because that will mean, that's different than what the council has approved and the process that we've gone through of anything in the parks. Because it could also be something different than food trucks. It could be other vendors that, let's say at Starlight, we're out in the plaza area, where we do have utilities in that, where somebody could go in and put a permanent stand, let's say to sell kites, whatever, or it could be food there on a more permanent basis and not a movable. Again, we go through that kind of process and let the council. And so I don't know that if I want to say, even for mobile restaurants, as these would be, to totally supersede that. I think we need to discuss that among staff and then come back with as part of the ordinance as to whether that would indeed supersede it, or you still need to go through the process, if we're talking about parks.
And just to bring that topic up, the reason that, again, the clause wasn't added in this is because the agreement can't be canceled so quickly by either side. Actually, when the gentleman came to the food trailer along Lee's Mini Golf, one of the conditions that he had was that any mobile food vehicle ordinance that is passed, he would be subject to that ordinance and would not be grandfathered in. So that is something I added in that case, but in this case, because the agreement can be canceled, I did not add it this time.
Guess while Sylvesters are here, I'd like to maybe give them opportunity to talk about kind of your vision or where you see this headed. I'm going to guess there's 12 parks, you're going to have 12 trucks, and you're not going to be there every day. So you can maybe briefly kind of talk about what you'd like to see happen from your perspective or what your vision is.
It's a
And
scary
the husband
place.
always loses that look.
Well, I guess what we'd like to see is just utilize these parks, bring people to the parks. We already own a restaurant, brick and mortar restaurant, and so we understand people's concerns with brick and mortar, and this is just in addition to our business and our services that we provide. So, yeah, we want great meeting spaces, provide another option for maybe lunch, say Monday, Wednesday, Friday, maybe a time that we're not open. It's extra hours. We're providing more, employment opportunities for our staff. In a nutshell, that's basically all we're trying to do.
So you don't see it so much as chasing events, so much as trying to create.
Well, yeah, I mean, we want to be part of events as well. But that's all I already kind of cut and dry, that in order to be a part of that, you contact the organizers of those events. So in terms of, utilizing the city space or an ordinance, that's all we're trying to achieve is, which was already kind of something in place with the city parks use policy. The only thing that I think would have to be amended, or doesn't have to be, but would request, would be the fees for using it. It wouldn't be very practical to pay that every time, every service to use those parks. That's how I personally feel, but.
A good looking truck, I'll give you that.
It's a great looking truck.
Now, this is the most important thing. What kind of food are you gonna have?
Gourmet flatbreads.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Excellent.
that's what it was before we bought it, as is. We bought the truck, the website, everything, out of Tampa, Florida. So, it had a lot of press down in that area. It was one of the first food trucks in Tampa. The guy that owned it owns 3 other food trucks. They're all the same. This one was different, so kind of fit what we were looking for. So we figured we'd go ahead and go for it, and hope that the public would support it as well. Give another option to people, for people. So
Well, will there be a schedule for which day you'll be at each park, or?
we'd like to have something, so people know where we're gonna be.
Mhm.
I'm not too up on even the Twitter and all the stuff that they're using, a lot of the bigger cities and stuff. Michelle usually handles most of the, that stuff, the Facebook and whatnot, but, yeah, we want people to know where we're gonna be, and we're not trying to confuse people.
Right.
Obviously, we'll have to put somewhere out there if we're at an event, out of town. We wanna keep it local as possible. But yeah, we'll have to let people know if we're gonna be around or, not available a certain weekend, but we've already got some events lined up. We've got the go-ahead, I think, from a few different committees and looking into some other ones, so.
Ground trial?
Possibly,
That'd be good.
possibly. Again, it depends on what it coincides with, we've got people requesting it for weddings, late night weddings. There's a day that, in July, we're hoping to be at Art on the Bay. There's also, we have the restaurant running, and then there's also, we have a wedding catering out in Grand Lake, so, we're gonna do everything we can be, wherever we can, but.
Cindy and I went down to the Michigan Municipal League Conference, and there was a fellow that had there were several people that had food trucks, but they had a giant one, and they set it up in a huge pole barn and decorated the pole barn and had wedding. And there were 3 or 4, or at least 3 or 4 different foods in different food trucks. And the wedding was just a giant bash.
Right.
And I guess everybody sold out. The food sold out. It was
Yeah, I mean, we're
really
hoping
a fun thing.
We're hoping this creates more interest and brings more, this type of thing to the area. It's not, we're not trying to go out and steal business from people, we're just trying to create something totally different. My hope is that it brings people from other communities in, and it's gonna bring money from other communities into our community. Traverse City, we've been reached out to by Traverse City, Boyne, to take part in food truck rallies. Boyne wants to do a fundraiser for their farmers market, so they reach out to other businesses like this and try to get people from, adjacent communities to come in, spend their money, support what they got going on. Traverse City also invited us over. There's an establishment there that has kind of their resident pod of food trucks or trailers with a couple that they leave open for rotating businesses and trailers. So, you know, we're hoping, not trying to work more with people, not against them. You know, I think everybody can benefit from it, whether it be Little League. You know, another thing going on with these trailers is organizations are renting them out, you know, and you can pay to have it there, and, you know, maybe it'll up your sales, or maybe you can get a percentage of the sales, you know. So we're not, you know, we want to work with everyone, not against them.
All right. Well, thanks,
Just
Matt.
something to consider.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I think personally, you know, it kind of accomplishes something that we all do, which the end in mind is improvement of the park experience, and I really do believe, I honestly support this, because I do believe it will enhance it, you know, going to the park or going to the beach for the day as well.
So I'm fine, and like I said, I'm even comfortable. I'm comfortable with it if Adam and the three staff are fine with the way G is, and it's not going to be an issue unless Mike wants to have that changed specifically prior to.
I could be, after the conversation tonight, I can be comfortable with it as written as well.
So, other than the small details with the typos, and I'm fine with it. If anybody, any other discussion on it? Or?
Adam, what is the name of the company that is actually the LLC company? Is it Epicare? Epicare? Okay, I move we approve the agreement with Epicare. LLC. Thank you.
Second.
Nielsen?
Yes.
Noah?
Yes.
Sexton?
Yes.
Walagora?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
All right. Last part of new business is the amendments to the parking ordinance 94-2. Joel coming up? Is that who's doing
He's
that?
trying to get up.
Okay.
Just trying to get up.
Looked like Adam was staying, but he didn't want to.
I'm taking it all.
Good evening. Yeah, parking ordinance, so real exciting stuff we got here. For you that read the ordinance or the memo, I don't have anything real exciting about like the number of new drivers that's replaced the dead drivers or anything like that. I'm sure the stats are out there somewhere, I just don't have it tonight. So. The Downtown Development Authority Parking Committee, consisting of various community leaders and the city staff, has met several times during the past year to address a range of parking-related issues within the DDA. Two questions were recently raised regarding the authority of the non-law enforcement agent, commonly referred to as the parking enforcement person, as granted by the current city ordinance 94-2, I believe that's section D, paragraph 1. Specifically, if enforcement was limited to 2-hour parking violations on streets and in city parking lots. And the second was, and what authority, if any, did the agent have for enforcement within the privately owned areas? Upon reading the ordinance in its current form, I submitted the following suggested clarifications and amendments to City Attorney William Pfeiffer for his review. And as you'll see, the paragraph, there's some red words there. That was the added portion, and then the portion that was stricken. With all that taken into account, it would read, the position of the non-police officer / non-law enforcement agent is hereby approved and established and is hereby authorized to enforce all parking violations within the downtown development district areas or boundaries in the city, the parties filling such positions being designated as parking enforcement persons. A parking enforcement person shall be authorized to enforce all parking violations within the downtown development district area or boundaries in the city by issuing parking violations notices as authorized in the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code and the Code of City Ordinances of the city. That would be the cleaned up version of that. Mr. Pfeiffer concurred the proposed language was appropriate and reasonable. Furthermore, we agreed the parking enforcement person could only cite for handicap violations on private property within the DDA. The property owners would be responsible for addressing any other violations in accordance with state law. That'd be like abandoned vehicles, or if they had a vehicle parked taking up 2 spots, that would be their issue to remedy. And if they needed our assistance with that, that'd be the PD, we would help them with that. And it would be the council's discretion to include any additional language on that matter regarding the handicap spots, because right now there's something about the enforcement on private property. So probably with a couple sentences, with the help of Mr. Pfeiffer, we could address that, which I would recommend. Lastly, attached is a copy of the current listed parking offenses. I think so, I don't know if it's page 3 or 4 or addendum 1. I would propose that we strike offense number 14. That would be currently awarded as parking in excess of 2 hours as prohibited by official sign. And add a variation of the wording to offense 1, which is overtime parking, as it basically addresses the same issue. The funny thing about it, a lot of people, they say, what is overtime parking? And because don't we have it down here for 2 hours, so forth, and valid point. So what we'd like to see is maybe when the new ordinance is drafted, maybe a C. Right now they have reserved, unmetered, and maybe put a C in there that would basically have the similar language that's currently in 14, parking in excess of official sign. And that way, if we ever go back to 2-hour parking or go to 4-hour, whatever, we don't have to redo the whole ordinance again. It'll just be you're in violation of the time. So, obviously we'll entertain any questions, but I would like council to direct our esteemed city attorney to draft the new ordinance for the first reading on May 5th, with the second reading and council action on the May 19th meeting.
Just a quick question for you.
Yes.
As the police chief, do you have any apprehensions about a non-law enforcement agent carrying out the duties as he has been, or not?
We've had a parking attendant, I forgot for how many years, on and off. Leslie, how long was Mr. Mack? Was that during your time?
It was prior to my time.
Prior to your time? Well, when we had an enforcement officer, I can't recall any conflicts. There was never any screaming matches. I'm aware of if there were. They never told us. We never had anybody go overboard. From what I understand, and again, Leslie, I asked her to be here tonight in case there's any questions that she could also answer, but from what I understand, many community leaders and business owners have actually asked for the current attendant if he could stroll through their lots and private property to help with some issues there, and unfortunately, he really can't do that right now, other than probably the handicap bill, and I both agree, he could probably still write bills right now. But no, the answer is no. We've never had any issues with it. As long as they're reasonable, that's all we would ask.
And I don't know if it's just presented now, I guess, as far as we can give it some thought or whatever your recommendations are, but I don't know how thrilled I am with having a non-law enforcement person dealing with private property issues. I don't know if we're putting him in a position to have issues with everything that you guys know, your police department know, all the civil infractions and all the issues with private property, and he may or may not be qualified. Maybe this one is, but I don't know if the next one would be, or because that could turn. There's a difference between you're parked here for too long and you're in a handicap spot than dealing with issues where you're on private property and you have. It just seems like there would be issues with that he may not be qualified to handle at times.
And at this time, I think the only handicap spot we're looking at is behind the owl, that area.
Right, the only private property parking issue we'd like him to address is handicap. That's the only issue on private property.
Is that what you're saying in here?
Correct.
Okay.
It would only be handicap parking if they were, because that's a state law.
Then I was just misunderstanding what you said, because I read this and it said, we agree that the parking enforcement person could only cite for handicap violations on private property. And I understood that, and then I thought I misconstrued what you said. I thought you said that you wanted to give him, I thought you would leave it up to council to give him more authority. Like someone double parked in a private parking lot or someone.
No, I was saying.
If it's just a handicap.
I don't think council could grant that authority.
Oh, okay, I wouldn't think so. Maybe that's why I was so surprised to hear you say that you recommended it, so.
No, my recommendation was to be, currently, we have no language that I'm aware of.
Nothing at all.
as far as the handicap on private property, and I think, I mean, you may not need it, but I would, if you wanted to put it in, that he would be limited to, he or she would be limited to handicap enforcement on private property, something like that.
That's what you're recommending?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, I'm fine with that.
So,
All right.
but no, the other issues, absolutely not.
The one thing I've heard on the parking lot attendant, it's been a couple of times, so I'll say it, is that the chalk on the sidewall of the tires versus the chalk on the tread. There's been some people who've had cars detailed and, you know, they didn't prepare, they didn't care for the chalk on the sidewall. That was the only issue. Other than that, you know, it's been, you know, pretty pleasant, yes.
Okay,
As far as that goes.
we can look into that, Daniel, so. We'll write my tickets. We will look into that, Council. Any other questions on that? Well, thank you very much. And I just have one question. Did you guys crash the party party down there, the wedding party, or that's how it kind of sounds like you're talking about the
No.
great food?
No, it was just part of their presentation. It was really cool. It was actually the farmer's market.
I'm not asking.
Yeah, they did invite us.
Well, thank you.
All right, thanks, Chief. We'll look forward to the new,
So we need a motion to direct you to?
oh, we need a motion to direct you, Twain, to direct you
To direct.
to
Yes.
write the new.
So moved. Let's direct Bill.
Second.
That's a motion?
That's a motion. I moved. She said it, I said so moved.
Noah,
Yes.
Sexton,
Yes.
Walagora,
Aye.
Johnson,
Yes.
Nielsen.
Yes.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Who was the second?
You are watching All About Alpena.